Hey guys, this is DT Gaming. So you're about to hear the story of Flight 27, which is written by me. I wrote this book back in 2017. I published it. Well, actually, to be honest, to be fair, that that when I self-published my book through Amazon, I kind of got criticized for my book because it wasn't proofread by a professional editor. I really could not afford it. I seen the cost. I looked it up. Publishing your books, and I was, which is well over $500 to $1,000. I wish my book was more successful. It was the proudest time for me, but who cares how it's written, right? As long that it's understandable. The only problem is the grammar and punctuation. That's it. The story is good, which was told, and but people didn't like it because it was poorly written, and I never went to writing class. I wrote it without help. Anyways, so this is what the story is to be about, and I'll tell you about right now. The back part. Robert Hart, a pilot from Tampa Bay, Florida, locally flying commercial airlines within the states, never flown international, which that was about to change. An unexpected call to Robert that required him to pilot a small passenger jet across seas. Little did he knew that he would be transporting a smuggler that had escaped from prison. What was supposed to be a simple flight had turned into a flight to survive, as Robert flew right straight into a powerful storm that helped aid the disappearance of Flight 27, an island in which they thought they were safe until help arrived, but they thought wrong. Okay. So this is the prologue. Friday, June 22nd. Joe Watts receives a call at 1 a.m. I will arrive at 2 a.m. The operation will commence at 3 a.m. There was a package dropped at your door earlier today. The clothing that is required for the operation is concealed inside. There is a cell phone included as well. That phone will be the only phone used during the operation. All three of us will be using different phones. These types of phones are not traceable. Please make sure you are dressed and ready by the time I get there. Remember that your code name is Scorpion. Do not use our real names no matter what. Viper, your job is to take care of the other situation that I discussed with you. Not a problem. I'm currently parked just outside of his house. Viper hangs up his phone and sets it aside, reaching for his glove box, pulling it open, grabbing a gun that was lying inside, takes his silencer out of the glove box as well. Open the gun chamber, placing a few bullets inside the gun, closing the chamber of the gun, looking over his shoulder to look out his window to make certain there is no one else around before exiting the car. Creeping slowly toward the entrance of the house, checks the doorknob to find it being locked. Walk towards the back of the house to check the back door also being locked too. He begins to get frustrated with the doors being locked, not even a window open on the bottom floor. Either he sees while walking towards the back of the house, he looks up at the side of the house and spots a window open, though it was on the second floor, thinking to himself about how he was going to get inside now. Some light shines on the siding of the house from a passing car that had startled him, realizing that he's in the opening that anyone that passes by could even see him. In fear of getting caught, he walked to the back of the house away from the street that was facing the front. He noticed a garage that was next to the house with a door on the side. Checking the door to see if it's unlocked, slowly turning the knob on the door and pushes the door open. Shocked that the door wasn't locked, was too dark to see if there was anything useful, though. Knowing that he would have to go back to the car to grab his phone, didn't think that he would need it for any reason, though the dim light from the display on the phone would be bright enough to see inside. Slowly making his way back to the car, checking his surroundings to hope there wasn't anyone around, he opens the door of his car and grabs the phone on the passenger seat. Checking the time on the phone, 1:35 a.m., realizing he has only 45 minutes to an hour to complete the task at hand. Rushing back to the garage, he takes his phone out and shines the phone and sees what seems to be a ladder against the wall. Grabbing the ladder, which was tall enough to reach the open window, he spotted. Looking around to make sure there are no more passing cars, there seemed to be no one else around. Checking the time, it was 1:50 a.m. He puts the phone on vibrate just in case there was a call from the boss. He leans the ladder against the house next to the open window, slowly making his way up the ladder, trying not to make any sudden noise. The ladder had made a few creaking sounds, which startled him, but luckily it wasn't enough noise to wake his target up. Leaning towards the window, he slowly looked inside. It was too dark to make anything out of in the room. 30 minutes left and running out of time. Panicking, he starts to become. Thought to himself that he needs to create a distraction. Climbing back down the ladder and going towards the front of the house, he sees that there was a doorbell next to the door, thinking that ringing the doorbell might be the distraction that he needed. Walks to the front door and pushes the button to the doorbell, hesitates for a moment to think what to do next. Light shines through the window and he immediately runs towards the side of the house and up the ladder. With there being a light in the room, he can see through the window. Staying quiet as possible, listening for the front door to open. The creaking sound of the door was the moment he waited before opening the screen to the window. With it being a success, he climbed through the window and laid flat on the floor, waited quietly for him to return. The light turns off and he listens to him crawl back into his bed. Wait about 15 more minutes before making a move, creeping closer towards him, pointing his gun at his forehead, still sleeping or so it seemed. He squeezes the trigger, the bullet exits the gun and into his target's head, pulls the trigger again, and another bullet enters his forehead. He wanted to be certain that he is dead. Again points the gun at him, but this time at his right eye. Squeezes the trigger and the bullet enters through his right eye. The blood begins to trickle down his face onto his pillow. He checks the time and dials the boss. The voicemail picks up right away. He leaves a message on his voicemail. I have taken care of the problem that you have requested. Henry Collins won't be flying the plane no more. You can go ahead with your plan with Robert Hart piloting the plane. He checks his phone and realizes he dialed the wrong number. Calling the other number that the boss had given him, Henry was taken care of. Alright, get out here right away. We will be just outside the jewelry store at 2:45 a.m. Once we're in, we only have about a 5-minute window to grab the diamonds and get out of there before the cops arrive. Viper, from there, I will take you to the airport, and you're going to smuggle the diamonds on board of Flight 27. This was the main reason why I had you take out Henry. He's the original pilot of Flight 27. I will contact Robert now to tell him that he's going to be substituting for Henry. I'll just tell him that Henry called in sick. Everything will go according to plan. Once aboard, you will just sit among the other people and your bag will be in the upper storage compartment so no one will suspect a thing. There is an emergency door latch on the ceiling of the restroom. You know what to do from there. Viper hangs up his phone and exits out the window that he crawled through. Climbing back down the ladder, he grabs the ladder and places it back into the garage. Trying not to leave and nothing too suspicious. The shot from the gun shouldn't have been loud enough because of the silencer attached to it. Rushing back to his car, he puts the gun back in his glove box and speeds off. Grabs his phone because of the notification he just received, which was a message from the boss with GPS direction to the jewelry store. From his location, it shows that it would take about 20 minutes to get to the store. The boss arrives at Scorpion's house a few minutes after 2 a.m. Scorpion rushes down his pathway from his front door to his boss's car. Dressed in an entire black clothing, a dark shirt with dark pants, and wearing black gloves. The ski mask was tucked into his pocket as it would be too suspicious with the weather being almost 70 degrees. Not cold enough to be dressed like it's winter. Alright, Scorpion, we are to meet Viper outside of the jewelry store. Not exactly in front of it, but down the street some. Conversation continues while they drive to the store. Once there, Viper will use a glass cutter to avoid the alarm going off. We only have about 5 minutes to get the diamonds and get out before the silence alarm triggers. If we are quick enough, we can be in and out before the cops arrive. Alright, we're half a mile from the store. Viper just ahead of us. We will go in together and leave together. Viper walks up to the window of the boss's car. Alright, as I drove past the store, there seems to be a security guard just inside the door. Just make our break in a little more difficult, but not impossible. Alright, we are going to make this quicker. We will grab only the diamonds in the front display cases. There should be at least about $5 to $10 million in diamonds there. Viper, you will take out the guard. Once you fire the glass will shatter and the guard will be taken care of. But our 5 minute window will be most likely 2 minutes instead. Alright, let's make this happen. Viper led the way to the jewelry store with his gun just in his pocket, slowly creeping towards the door, looking to see where the guard was inside. The guard wasn't facing the door, but was busy looking at his phone. The perfect opportunity for Viper to take the shot without him noticing it. Pointing the gun at the guard through the window, trying to line the gun perfectly to hope to kill the guard instantly. Viper lines the gun to the guard's head while the other two ready their bags. Viper squeezes the trigger and the bullet exits the chamber and through the window. The shattering of the window startled the guard, but before he turned, the bullet enters the side of his head, instantly dropping the guard to the ground. Just as expected, the alarm sounds from the shattered window. Quickly, all three men rush inside, breaking the cases with their guns and grabbing as many diamonds as they could. Nearing 2 minutes, they managed to empty 3 cases planned. 20 seconds left, the men grabbed the bags and rushed back to their cars quickly. Making a quick U-turn and speeding away from the scene. The boss drops Scorpion back off at home. With the operation being successful, the boss hands Joe a ticket for Flight 27. We will meet back at the airport around 7 a.m. Now, I know I'm kind of bit stuttering into reading this. I do apologize. I'm a little bit nervous reading this. I don't know why, but yeah. Please understand that I'm trying to read as best I can. And, anyways, yeah. If you guys like this, make sure you do hit that like button. I do appreciate it. Chapter 1, The Call. Robert Hart was woken up from the sound of his phone ringing, checking his phone to realize that it was his work calling him. Robert, I know it's early, but I need you to be the pilot of Flight 27. Henry called in sick and is unable to make the flight. I know that this is your first time flying across seas. As your previous experience, I know that you would be perfect for the flying Flight 27. Please be here by 9 a.m. What about my daughter? I have to be here to pick her up after school, asked Robert. Don't worry about Amber. I will pick her up after school and watch her over the weekend for you, replied John. All right, thank you, John. That will be fine then. He hangs up the phone and stands up, walks towards his closet looking for his uniform that he had to wear for work. Robert grabs his clothes and heads towards the bathroom. Flipping on the light switch on the wall, setting his clothes aside, he reaches over for the shower faucet to turn the faucet on. He then removes his clothes from his body. After a few minutes of washing up, he steps out of the shower, he grabs his clothes and puts them on. Stepping out of the bathroom, turning off the light on the way out, walking down the hallway to his daughter's room. Knocked a few times. Amber, it's time to get up and get ready for school, he replied. Sweetheart, listen, Johnny will be picking you up after school. You will be staying with him over the weekend. Amber looks at her dad and smiles awkwardly. Why, Daddy? Why are we going with Johnny? Amber asked. Daddy's job is going to be taking him away for a few days. Daddy will be back soon, promise. He reaches for his daughter, giving her a hug, kissing her on the forehead. Daddy loves you. He stands up and looks back at Amber. I'll be waiting for you downstairs. I have cereal ready for you as well. Stepping out of his daughter's room and making his way towards the steps, setting down them, he walks down the hall to his living room, grabbing the remote from the stand next to the sofa. He sits down, turns on the television. During a statement that was on the news this morning around 3 a.m., a local jewelry store was robbed. About $10 million of diamonds were taken from the display cases. The security camera had captured three suspects involved in the robbery. They were wearing masks, which made it hard to identify them. If you have any information that could lead to the arrest of the suspects, please contact the Tampa Bay Police Department. Robert gets up from his sofa and heads towards the kitchen. He grabs a canister from the cupboard and pours some coffee into his coffee maker. Going into the fridge and grabbing some vanilla beans as well, throws a few of them in the coffee maker, closes the lid on his coffee maker, and presses the grind button. While the coffee is brewing, he grabs a box of cereal from the top of the fridge, grabs the milk from the fridge, and places them on the table. He turns towards his watch and notices that it's almost 8 a.m. He needs to be at work by 9. Amber, hurry up. Got only a few minutes before we have to go, shouted. He grabs the bowl from this cupboard and pours the cereal and milk into the and sets it back on the table. Amber steps into the kitchen dressed and ready for school. She sits at the table and begins to eat her cereal. He grabs his thermos from the counter and removes the lid from it. He grabs the coffee pot and pours the coffee in the thermos. He then shuts the coffee maker off. I'll meet you in the living room. Also, don't forget your book bag, said Robert. He leaves the kitchen, grabbing the remote, turning the television off. Grabs his hat by the door. Let's go, Amber. I have to be at work by 9. You have to be at school by 8:30, he yelled. Amber comes out of the kitchen and grabs her book bag that was on the arm of the sofa, exits the home together. Both climb into his pickup truck and begins driving towards Amber's school. I know that you're not too happy with all this from the way you've been so quiet. I'll make it up to you somehow. When I return, alright? Please don't be upset. Daddy loves you with all his heart. This job um, I'm taking just might be enough to take you to Disney World. The look at her face changed in an instant. She looked at her dad and smiled. Thank you, Daddy. You're the best. Can we go next week? Amber asked. I don't see why not. Here, I should be back by Monday, if not Tuesday. Robert gives her one more hug and before she leaves the truck. Love you, Daddy, Amber says. While exiting the truck, Robert leaves the school and heads off to work. Curious about the weather, he turns on the radio and listens into a local he tunes into a local station, listening for the weather statement. After a few minutes of driving, a brief weather statement was being announced. He turned up the volume on the radio to listen closely. The current weather is 98 degrees with a 90% humidity. With speed is 90 sorry. Wind speed is 21 miles per hour with a gust of 35. There is low pressure forming with clouds moving into the area, with the possible chances of severe thunderstorms later today. He pulls into the airport terminal as the weather statement closes. Parking his truck, take the keys from the ignition, grabbing his large thermos as he exits his truck. Walking towards the entrance of the building, walking up to the security guard. Hey, good morning, Heather, Robert said, smiling. Has it been busy this morning? Asked Robert. It's been quite busy this morning now that you mention it. You do know that I'll probably be an hour before your flight is ready. Robert looks at Heather knowing that she's right. From what I'm understanding that I'm taking a group of students to Africa for a field training study um, for the wildlife there. You have a quite a flight ahead of you there, Heather pointed out. You know that I heard on the radio earlier that it's going to be windy and cloudy with possible chance of storms. Robert, listen, you'll be departing soon, which means that the storm will arrive long after you have departed. Do not worry so much about it. Robert replied, I should be going over the Atlantic shoreline by the time that storm arrives. Well, Heather, I ought to be getting ready. Robert pointed at his watch. I will catch you later, Heather. Stay safe, Robert, and Godspeed. He steps into the bathroom, feeling anxiety building up. His heart begins to race while his hands begin to sweat, knowing that this was his first long flight overseas. He was used to short distance flights throughout the United States. He felt excited but also nervous at the same time. He puts his hands under the faucet sensor to fill his hand with some cold water. He then splashes his face and starts to feel some relief. He looks into the mirror staring at his uniform, wearing a captain's hat, a Welsh a white shirt with black dress pants, and shiny black dress shoes. After a few minutes, he begins to feel better. He steps out of the bathroom and exits through the doors. He walks towards the plane and he realizes that the plane he was flying was a small jet. Meeting up with his co-pilot Alex, Robert sits in the seat next to Alex in the flight deck. He grabs the headset. Robert to control tower, what's our status? Robert asked. John speaking, it's a bit windy, but you should be alright. Robert flips the switch to the intercom and announced, "This is your captain speaking. We will be departing here shortly. Please listen to the instructions from our two flight attendants carefully. Estimated time to Africa should be about 15 hours, he announced. Shutting off the intercom, then turns towards the control panel. "This is your first big flight?" asked Alex. "This is. Although a bit nervous, I'll be alright. I brought my freshly made coffee with me, so that should help during the long flight." Robert heard voices through his headset. "Control tower to Flight 27. This is John from the control tower. Listen carefully. We are well aware that this is your first long flight. We know that you can handle yourself well. Really, you're one of the better pilots. Listen, we were just informed of a possible tropical storm, too. From the looks that it might be in your flight directory. Do not feel alarmed, though. What do we suggest? You can avoid the storm by going further north, but it will take a few extra hours out of your way." "John, what's the current status of the storm?" he asked. "The status of the storm isn't good. The wind shows 52 miles an hour. Robert, listen, I picked you because your record shows you handle other planes through storms. This storm is several times worse than the ones you encountered before. John, understand that. Getting ready to leave, John." Flipping a few switches and pushes up on the throttle to throw the plane out of parking. The plane begins to gather speed, slightly pushing the yoke back to lift the plane off the ground. "Alex, how far is that storm, if you know?" he asked. "I'm uncertain," Alex replied. "Perhaps you should contact John. Perhaps he should know." Flight 27, the tower. Tower to Flight 27, John speaking. "John, where is that storm located and how far is it from our location?" he asked. "What's your location, Flight 27? He asked. "We're about 12 miles east of Tampa Bay." Robert said the storm is 1,315 miles from your location. It'll probably take a half a day before you come even contact with the storm. Robert turns off the radio to disconnect from John. Robert flips the audio pilot on so that he can grab himself a cup of coffee. He brewed himself, still hot from the thermos. Twisting the top off, he inhales the coffee's aroma. Feeling selfish, he asked Alex if he wanted some of his coffee as well. Though Alex already did have his own, but he knew that his wasn't the same as his. Though Alex looked at Robert and accepted his offer and handed him an extra cup he had. Alex takes a sip of Robert's coffee, which had a sweet taste to it. "This coffee is fantastic," he said. "Where did you buy it?" he asked. "I brew my own coffee at home. Something about the ground coffee doesn't have the same taste as fresh roasted coffee. I like to experiment with different flavors of my own." "Robert, is there a hint of vanilla I taste in the coffee?" he asked. "Yes, Alex," Robert replied. "I use vanilla beans while grinding the coffee beans to make the vanilla you taste." Suddenly the plane shakes hard. Alex immediately reaches for the audio pilot to disengage it. "We just entered an area with a lot of turbulence," said Alex. "Jessica, this is Robert. Check to make sure all the passengers are in their seats with their seat belts on. Make sure they remain seated until we're through this turbulence," said Robert. "Will do," she replied. "Attention all passengers. During this time we ask for you all to remain in your seats and keep your safety belts fastened until we're through this bit of turbulence we're experiencing now. Thank you for your cooperation."